So my topic for today is honoring and celebrating diversity. Often we think of diversity having to do with ethnicity, with sexual orientation, with economic background, with those other experiences in life. I believe in June you celebrated Pride Month in Nashville, and in San Diego ours was in July, and it's a wonderful time for us to come together regardless of your path in life and regardless of your sexual orientation, but to come together and recognize the worth and the value of each of us and the fact that each of us is the beloved. But today I'd like to take us in a little bit of a different direction related to diversity in our experiences in this thing called life. I'm so glad you're with me today because I'm going to talk about things we don't talk about. And I love to talk about things we don't talk about in New Thought. I love to talk about forgiveness as a process, not an event. I love to talk about being and doing and having enough. I love to talk about these life experiences. In this teaching we call Unity and New Thought, we tend to focus on the positive. We tell ourselves and others that all is well, that everything is in divine order, that everything is perfect, that it's all good. Don't worry, be happy. And all those statements are absolutely true. But the fact may be that something has happened in our lives and our hearts are breaking. Can we allow ourselves to be with those emotions and those feelings, or do we cover them up or try to cover them up with toxic positivity and spiritual bypass? And I'll talk much more about those terms that you might have heard in a little while. There is a Zen saying, "May we exist like a lotus at home in muddy water. Thus we bow to life as it is. Not as it should be, not as we wish it were, but bowing to life as it is." Are we able to do that and allow ourselves to not stay stuck in the mud, but to exist in the mud as we keep moving? Because life is joy and wonder and passion and possibility. And life is frustration and heartbreak and disappointment. Can we allow ourselves to be with all of it, to embrace all of it, to welcome all of it? Now, in no way am I suggesting that we stay stuck in that mud, but one of my favorite authors once wrote, and Debbie Ford was her name, you might have written or read some of her work. She said, "What we can't be with won't let us be." Can we be with that, with the not charming and sparkling and wonderful and rainbow and teddy bears? Can we be with those human emotions so that we can allow ourselves to process them through and move forward? One of my favorite authors is Brené Brown, and in the book, The Gifts of Imperfection, she writes about perfectionism. Hair is done. Silver, your color for the month is silver. Silver shirt, how cool is that? Still Small Voice said, well, wear that one instead of blue. So all buttoned up, all good to go. And we do that, and we do a good job of that, but there's also all the rest of this thing called life. And in the book, The Gifts of Imperfection, she writes, "Perfectionism is not the same as striving to be your best. Perfectionism is not about healthy achievement and growth. Perfectionism is the belief that if we live perfect, look perfect, and act perfect, and we'll put perfect in quotation marks, my words, not hers. We can minimize or avoid the pain of blame, judgment, and shame. But it's a shield. Perfectionism is a 20-ton shield that we lug around thinking it will protect us, when in fact it's the thing that's really preventing us from taking flight. Can we allow ourselves to grieve? Whether it's over something that happened this morning, or last week, or 5 years ago, or 50 years ago, can we allow ourselves to look at that experience, to be willing to look at that experience, feel it, so we can heal it and move forward? Do we allow that, and again, quotations, imperfection, or is all of that perfectly part of our experience in this thing called life? So I know you've been around for at least the last 2 or 3 years with all the rest of us, and it's been strange. We didn't expect this. We missed births and baptisms and weddings and graduations and memorial services and funerals. Some of us missed the opportunity to say that last goodbye. My mother died of COVID in January of last year, and the doctor called and said, "This is pretty much it, and if you want to see her one more time, you better come to the hospital." And I said, "Well, how would that look?" And he said, "Well, we'll put you in a hazmat suit, and we'll, usher you in, and you won't be able to touch her, but you can at least be in the room." And I said, she knows how much I love her. I know that she is safe. I know that she is moving on the wings of love. And so I didn't have the opportunity to see her one more time. How many of us have gone through that? And so there's grief and there's loss. Maybe the trip of a lifetime on your bucket list, you had the cruise all scheduled, or the trip, or whatever it was that we didn't get to do. So there's that. There's still that feeling of grief and that feeling of loss. And how important it is for us to recognize this, to feel it, so that we can then move forward. So my story is, my late husband and I were together for 33 years. And in October of 2018, so almost 5 years, October of 2018, in about August of 2017, he was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. And so went through, and he was a nurse. He was a registered nurse in San Diego. And so went through the chemo process and all of that, and the drugs were doing great things for the tumors, but terrible things to his physical body. And so Marcia mentioned I'm part of the affiliated New Thought Network, or ANTON, and for the last several years, and including in 2018, we've done our annual retreat at Unity Village. So my husband, who is also Jerry, so we talked, because he's getting weaker and weaker and thinner, and do you really want to go with me? Because he was packing his suitcase and would get a couple of pieces of clothes out of the closet and then come sit down and rest, and get a couple of pieces of clothes out of the closet and then come sit down and rest. And he said, no, I really want to go with you. And so we used a wheelchair to get from one gate to another on the way. We were there for 2 nights, and he fell. He wasn't able to attend any of the events or the talks, and so the second night he fell on the way to the bathroom and was too weak to get up. And so I somehow got him to the bathroom and then back into the bed, and I said, "No, we got to go home." So next, called the airline, changed the reservation. Next day, we flew Kansas City to Houston. And he's in the wheelchair. We go to the gate, and I said, wait here, I'm going to go check on our seat assignments. And when I came back, he was unresponsive. So, quick, called the paramedics. They came, they were able to revive him, transported him from the Houston airport to Memorial Hermann Hospital in Houston. His heart stopped again on the way to the hospital, and they weren't able to revive him. So I went and found a hotel, spent the night, made the phone call, spent the night. Next morning, got up, went to the airport, got the 4 suitcases, because I had 2 of mine plus 2 of his, and flew home to San Diego by myself. Got home, sat down, and began to grieve. Because if you've had this experience, you know when we get a diagnosis, we do our affirmative prayer, we do our treatment work, we do what we do, but also there's a thought that this might not come out the way I wanted it to, because every person is on their own path. So I sat down and I started to grieve, and my ego said, no. You're a religious science minister. All is well. Everything's in divine order. Everything is as it should be. And a dear, dear friend of mine said to me, it's all good. Not using any of the fingers on my right hand as a response, I really fought with this, and I really battled with this about my knowing that everything is in divine order and everything is as it should be, but also my heart is breaking. So over a period of time, I was able to begin to be with this grief and this loss, and that's how the workshop that we'll do this afternoon came into being, is by allowing myself and inviting you to look at those losses, those grieving experiences in our lives, and be with whatever it is so that we can heal it and move forward. So you've probably heard those terms, toxic positivity and spiritual bypass. And I got to visit with Reverend Christina and her partner at the INTA conference last month in Fort Lauderdale. And I had the opportunity to present there. And one of the things I talked about was meeting our dear ones. You are my dear ones. So meeting our dear ones where they are. And when someone comes to us for prayer or for counseling or for conversation, can we allow them to feel this grief and feel this loss so that they can move forward? So often we label our emotions as good or bad, and we'll talk about this afternoon. So joy and passion and wonder and happiness and all those are good emotions. And anger and fear and grief and loss are bad emotions. But what if they aren't? What if they just are? Is there a way for us to reframe that into recognizing that that's part of this amazing, wonderful, luscious experience we call life? Is all of this. It's all of this. So, why does it matter? Well, junk is not my favorite word, but for lack of a better word, I have a junk drawer at my house. Don't tell anybody. And you might have a junk drawer, or a junk closet, or a junk storage space, or a junk garage, or whatever you want to say. But the junk is all that stuff that we absolutely cannot live without. So that's where I have no idea how the 7 tape measures wound up all in that one drawer, but they do. Or the Phillips screwdriver, or the extra switch plates for the electrical switches in the house, or just whatever. But so there's that drawer, and every time you open it, things shift just a little. And the tape measure that was down in the bottom comes a little closer to the top. And then the screwdriver comes a little closer to the top. And then something else comes a little closer to the top. And think about our emotions that we don't allow ourselves to look at and feel as being in the drawer. And so that anger, because admittedly, he was a registered nurse, he did not do his annual colon cancer screening, and if you're over the age of 45, I so encourage you to do that. Take care of yourself and do what you need to do. He didn't do that, being a good nurse, and if there are nurses in the room, you all take wonderful care of us, but you don't always take really good care of yourself. So there's some anger. No, I'm okay. All is well. It's all good. He was on his path, all of those things. But then somebody's in the left lane doing 55 miles an hour talking on the phone, and I'm late to work. Or I'm at Costco. Ever go to Costco? I pick on Costco a lot because it is a religious experience with all my stuff coming up to get me, and somebody's parked crossways in the entryway looking for their membership card. It's got to be here somewhere, and I'm like, for the love of God. That's how I know I've got a judgment coming, because my thoughts start with, for the love of God. Couldn't you have gotten your membership card before you got to the door? So it's 23 2/3 seconds out of my life that I'm waiting for them to do this. But that anger, that hurt, that regret, all those wonderful emotions that I've stuffed come out in surprising and wonderful ways. Or the pint of Ben & Jerry's that you were just going to eat half of. Now, keeping in mind that it's not as good after you open it. And if your thing is ice cream and it's Ben & Jerry's or Haagen-Dazs or Talenti or whatever, but you were just going to eat half of that and all of a sudden it's all gone. Or the money you were saving for that vacation next year and you went over to Opry Mills to the outlet mall and spent all of it and more besides. What we can't be with won't let us be. Can we be willing to look at those bad emotions and recognize they're all part of this experience that we call life? Are we willing to open the drawer and clean it out of all the tape measures and screwdrivers and switch plates and anger and betrayal and hurt and everything else, and lovingly release it so we can move forward? It all requires forgiveness, and that's another Sunday talk, so we won't go down that road, but suffice it to say, it does, and we'll talk just a little about that this afternoon. If you've had a loss in your life, and I would be willing to bet somehow, some way, and whether it's someone's death, and how do we do with that? We don't even say the D word. They made their transition. They went on to their next experience, and they did all of that, and they also died. But the loss of the physical presence of a dear one, or of a job, or of a change of a relationship that didn't turn out the way we had in mind, are we able to allow ourselves to look at all of this, love ourselves through the process, and feel it so we can move forward? Sometimes we have a belief, and especially if you've had this experience with a dear one, and it could be a son or daughter, could be a partner, could be a dear friend, that life will not be good again. What we know is that life will not be the same again. And I got to admit, watched a Hallmark movie, oh dear God. So I love Golden Girls, because if you're a gay man, you lose your membership card if you don't love Golden Girls. So, got it. So I'm at INTA the night before my talk, and it's 9:45, and Hallmark has them at 10 o'clock Eastern time. So I'm waiting, and here's this Hallmark movie. And the couple that winds up getting together are two guys, and it's Christmas, and I'm sitting there just sobbing because it won't be the same again. I won't have Christmas with Jerry again. You won't have whatever that was that you had before again. But we have the potential for something new and something wonderful and something amazing, as long as we allow ourselves to make it so. Allow ourselves to recognize that we can step into the next chapter of the new relationship or the new job or the new whatever it is and move forward. Because the truth is, if you're still here, there's something else. And we're still here, so as we allow ourselves to be open to it, there is something else. And for me, there was someone else. And that's my new beloved, who is amazing and adorable and wonderful and nothing like Jerry, but Oliver is just the joy of my life. And that's what life does when we are open to it, when we allow it. Spirit says, let me hold you. Let me love you. Let me help you through this so that you can step into the next good that's yours. No, it's not the same. It's not the same, but it's wonderful and it's amazing. But we have to be open and willing to heal it so we can, and feel it so we can heal it and then move forward into that great good. So this afternoon after the service, this is a shameless advertisement, we're going to do a deeper dive into a lot of what I've talked about, and we should have Kleenex boxes available. So if you need one, we can do that. But I so invite you to be with me for about 2 hours, and we'll look at these emotions that we've just not really been able to look at, but allow ourselves to feel it so we can heal it and step into that next good that life has for us. Because life is joy and passion and wonder, and also disappointment and heartbreak and fear and questioning. And when we allow ourselves to be with all of it, that's how we have the joy and the lusciousness of this thing called life. Remember the Sufi mystic poet Rumi's writing about the guest house. So all of these, the joy and the wonder and everything else, it's just all part of this experience. So I hope you'll stay with me this afternoon. Would you join me in prayer for just a moment? So as we allow ourselves to remain in this consciousness of oneness, we are reminded of the truth of our being, that we are the essence, expression, and experience of Spirit. And we are so grateful for the opportunity to be together as this beloved spiritual community. We're so grateful for the opportunity to be reminded of the truth of our being, to allow ourselves to feel it so we can heal it and move forward. We are so grateful knowing that no matter what the situation is, we never walk alone. So for our time together today, for this community, we give great thanks. Together we say, and so it is. Amen. Amen. Thanks, everybody.